are going to be a couple of Pokemon mirrored in this matchup, and so while we got a chance to see Lorcy play out a mirror in terms of the same 6, there were those differences in speed that ended up coming into the equation. For Dylan, the matched Pokemon would be the Blood Moon Ursaluna, the Incineroar, as well as the Ninetales on both sides. And so that's where you have to look at those minute differences between the sets as well as the training.
Yeah, speed could come into play here for sure. So the Ninetales almost always running at maximum speed, so we'd expect that those, if they end up against each other, would be tied. The Ursalunas, the sets are quite different. You can see the more bulky Leftovers set from Lorcy, where the other one from Dylan is Life Orb, and generally going to mean that it's a faster Ursaluna, especially since we saw earlier on in the day that Lorcy's Ursaluna was not that fast, which actually means it's quite vulnerable to the other one. Compared to the Assault Vest Ursaluna that can withstand an Earth Power or a Blood Moon, the Leftovers variant is quite, vulnerable to do a quick Life Orb Blood Moon coming out and just KOing it. So something that Lorcy's going to have to watch out for sure.
The only thing that I feel like is going to be like a really big way to deal with that Blood Moon Ursaluna is going to be this Rillaboom. The Assault Vest could prove to be very impactful versus that particular Pokemon, but it's tough because even while you look at the Rillaboom, you have a lot of other ways that you can actually deal damage to it.
Right, the Dragonite I think is going to be a key player for Dylan and does well against the Rillaboom. Sinestcha, Kingambit also don't really mind fighting the Rillaboom. And Ninetales, we saw how much damage it can put out in that match against Riley earlier. Has a similar possible impact here against Lorcy, can put out big blizzards. I think the story may be for Lorcy trying to find the Golden Go damage. It's naturally faster than Ursaluna on the other side. If you can get a nasty plot up with that more vulnerable Ursaluna on the other side, no defensive Terastallization for Make It Rain, you can start dealing a ton of damage. But there's two big dark types that resist Make It Rain that are obstacles for that. The Kingambit and the Incineroar are going to be important roadblocks in the way. Assault Vest Kingambit with the coverage feels like it's going to be impactful kind of across Lorcy's team. Can of course throw an Iron Head into Ninetales along with Sucker Punching that Golden Go. I don't think we've seen Lorcy use the Sneasler yet on stream, but this may be a match that kind of necessitates it. You look at 3 Pokemon weak to close combat, Sinestcha weak to acrobatics. This would be the moment, it seems like, to try to lean on that Sneasler a little bit more. It can also help with the Dragonite, because once Dragonite sets up the Tailwind, a lot of these Pokemon will start to look a little more threatening. Of course, Ursaluna, for instance, can move before your Golden Go and threaten it, but the Sneasler is going to be free and clear of all of that. We'll be past all of these Pokemon even if they have a Tailwind, and maybe, in some cases, even if it takes an Icy Wind from Alolan Ninetales.
Yeah, well, especially if that Unburden is activated, right? And then you also have that increased damage from the Acrobatics. But I'm so excited to see who will come out on top in our first top 4 of the Milwaukee Regional Championships, Lorcy and Dylan. Dylan is going to lead with this Blood Moon Ursaluna and the Ninetales. Lorcy matches the Ninetales, but also brings out this Rillaboom.
So both Ninetales on the field, snowing and grassy terrain right away. Immediately, the Ninetales are matched up against each other. Only Icy Wind on Dylan's side. That Icy Wind could open up the opportunity for Ursaluna to move before the Ninetales on the other side, but both players would have to be weary of the speed tie in that case. Rillaboom looks a little bit more strong on the field. Doesn't have to worry too much about Blizzard from the other side because of the Assault Vest, and could swing out towards Ursaluna with a Woodhammer, but likewise might have to worry about something like Icy Wind and Blood Moon being enough damage to pick up the KO on Rillaboom. So a pretty volatile position here, especially if one of the players isn't willing to lock into a Ninetales speed tie right away. Then you have to figure out how you're getting out of the position, which could put you quite, in a poor defensive place.
We've seen a lot of players with a fake out option on the board actually not go for that. And I wonder if maybe Dylan is actually going to fall victim to Lorcy not using that fake out on this turn. Rillaboom knows that it's putting a lot of pressure onto this Ursaluna, so Dylan decides to retreat it for now, bring out this Incineroar to get that Intimidate drop onto the Rillaboom, and also have fake out pressure for the next turn, as Dylan goes out with this Icy Wind to drop the speeds of both the opposing Ninetales as well as Lorcy's. The additional benefit of this Icy Wind is that Lorcy's own Ninetales is also going to lose its Focus Sash in this process. Maybe if you're able to get some recovery back, you have that opportunity later, but firing out another Blizzard, it's almost like you're doing the same amount of damage that you just received with the Icy Wind. It's really not that much. And the Woodhammer helps to chip away at this Incineroar a little bit, but you're also still taking some damage from the recoil.
Right, the main target for that, the Ursaluna, was free and gone off the field by that point. Incineroar a very safe switch in to intimidate the Rillaboom, resist Blizzard, and have fake out pressure for this turn. The Ninetales speed tie was diffused by Incineroar just coming in, making it so it didn't really matter what order the Pokemon attacked in. We just got a little bit of damage exchanged all around. Crucially, the Ninetales and Rillaboom both slowed down, so Rillaboom likely slower than the Incineroar on the other side. Now has to be weary of a Flare Blitz coming into Rillaboom as well, and you know that's on top of the ice damage already threatened from Ninetales on the other side. Meanwhile, Ninetales on Lorcy's side, you know, it got Blizzard off, but for pretty minimal damage, right? It's not something that you want to just successively fire off now that Ursaluna's not on the field. But first, the Encore going to lock in the Woodhammer.
The Woodhammer is actually going to be kind of nice if it's able to go off into the Ninetales. But with the knockoff from this Incineroar removing the Assault Vest, the additional damage coming through from the Blood Moon Ursaluna or the Ninetales from Dylan that have been revealed so far will continue to stack up. But Rillaboom with the Woodhammer into the Ninetales actually gets quite a bit of mileage out of it, but it's on its last legs. Just a sliver of HP left, and both of these Pokemon faster than it.
I think it's really interesting prioritization to see the Encore into Woodhammer. To me, that means that Dylan is more worried about preserving Incineroar than almost anything else. Didn't want to risk that a high horsepower was going to come out and do good damage into Incineroar. Maybe worried about Golden Go in the back for Lorcy and wants to make sure that obstacle is still in the way. So locks the Rillaboom into Woodhammer, which, like we said, still did significant damage to Ninetales on the other side. Meanwhile, Aurora Veil goes up. That's the option on Lorcy's Ninetales that isn't available on Dylan's side. It means that future damage is going to be lessened. That's not going to save Rillaboom. It's down quite low after all the recoil it's taken and damage that it's taken. No Assault Vest anymore. Very vulnerable, and now you have to make the decision, do you just let it go down, or do you try to preserve it? Because if it can come out and back in the future, you might be able to get a second Grassy Train, more fake out pressure, and get out of that Encore. So yeah, Rillaboom going to be preserved, but at the cost to some positioning and maybe some health for whatever Pokemon is about to come in.
Yeah, Sneasler comes in, and at least the Grassy Terrain is active right now, so it actually does get to consume its Grassy Seed and activate that Unburden ability. With the Grassy Seed, you are going to give yourself a little bit of a defense boost, which is nice versus this Incineroar, but the Ninetales knows that there is a threat of Encore on the other side. It doesn't want to get locked in to using Aurora Veil again, but Dylan decides to just go out on the offense. With this Blizzard from the Ninetales, you actually do a pretty good amount of damage to the Sneasler, but the Parting Shot as well to follow that up is going to really limit the Sneasler's damage output on the next turn.
Yeah, Sneasler is really paying to keep Rillaboom safe. Some damage, very little damage, not the Aurora Veil helping to mitigate that, but the Parting Shot that's going to lower Sneasler's attack and put Incineroar in the back so that it can come back in. Meanwhile, Sinestcha is going to come out and heal this Ninetales up a little bit. Both sides taking some more defensive plays, getting a little bit more healthy. Like you mentioned, the Encore from Dylan's Ninetales into Lorcy's Ninetales definitely a threat, because recall that way back on turn 1, Icy Wind landed into Lorcy's Ninetales, so it is definitively slower than the one on the other side. And so now, after having protected on the previous turn, once again vulnerable to Encore on this turn. So another Pokemon that you're tempted to, you feel you might have to get off the field. But Lorcy keeps having to rotate through these Pokemon and is not making a lot of progress because of it. Meanwhile, Sinestcha is helping to keep the team healthy. Sneasler, though, even at -1 attack, is threatening a lot of damage into Ninetales on the other side. That may force a Rage Powder or a Terastallization or another Intimidate, something to diffuse that pressure.
It's going to be a Terastallization as that response. Water Terra invested into the Sinistcha, so it's not going to be taking that super effective damage from the Ninetales anymore. Even this Acrobatics is not going to be doing nearly as much. But the Encore into the Ninetales, Lorcy's going to be locked into having to go for Protect now. At least maybe you do get a couple of turns out of this that are valuable. Like if you were able to get a Protect here, it's going to fail now, but you will be guaranteed a Protect on the next turn as Dylan sets up Trick Room. Now the speed's very firmly in Dylan's favor in terms of the Sinistcha, but it gets a little bit awkward in terms of the Ninetales.
Well, the Ninetales on Lorcy's side Encored into Protect, so it doesn't matter that it might be the first, moving before the Ninetales on Dylan's side. Meanwhile, the Sneasler will definitely be moving last. We talked about it being faster than everything if Tailwind, even if Tailwind is going up from the Dragonite on Dylan's side, well, it's definitely slower than everything when the Trick Room goes up from the Sinestcha on that side. So a pretty vulnerable Pokemon, maybe not too much from the damage. We saw the Blizzard from Ninetales earlier, Sinestcha really not adding much. There's no Shadow Ball here, so it's just a resisted Machagacha, not going to add much to them. So despite both Pokemon attacking before Sneasler, it can probably safely go out on the offense, but for how much damage? You saw that with the Terastallization spent for water, you don't resist, aren't weak to make it rain, acrobatics anymore, so there's not a huge threat either way.
Yeah, but the Machagacha does have that chance to burn the Sneasler, and if it does do that, then the Sneasler's damage output is going to be mitigated even further after having already taken a Parting Shot from that Incineroar a couple of turns ago. But we don't see the burn, at least onto the Sneasler just yet, but we do see one onto the Golden Go. And no, okay, no burn onto the Sneasler. Does take some Blizzard damage, and there wasn't a chance there for the Sneasler to actually get frozen. But the burn on the Golden Go not really mattering as much, just because it's a special attacker.
Right, Golden Go doesn't mind the attack drop, might over time mind the health that it's losing per turn, but for the moment can start swinging out on the offense. The snow disappears, so Ninetales isn't going to have as easy of a time clicking Blizzard, and might not want to stay on the field anyway, because Golden Go will move before Ninetales in the trick room that Dylan set up. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see Incineroar hit the field again. It was preserved earlier for Golden Go to make sure that it could answer that, and another Intimidate on Sneasler will kind of fully undo the Swords Dance. We'll be back to neutral attack on the Sneasler. Meanwhile, Sinestcha looks very safe on the field, doesn't have to worry about either of his Pokemon too much as a water type, but really isn't doing much either. Just throwing out Machagachas that are resisted by both Pokemon. We saw how little that was on the previous turn, so it's a little bit of a frozen game state. And you know, can't break through the Sinestcha and the Incineroar that easily, and the Sinestcha can't do much back. Lorcy would then have the opportunity to maybe chase a Ninetales switch if you do think the Incineroar is coming in. It's pretty easy to throw close combat there because there's so little pressure that there's not a huge opportunity cost to throw that out.
I mean, the Ninetales does actually retreat, and it's the Incineroar that comes back out. So Incineroar is going to drop that boost that the Sneasler got, so now back to neutral, but it's still going to be able to do a lot of damage here with the close combat. Unfortunately for Lorcy, this Sinistcha does go for the Rage Powder, so we'll redirect that away, but Golden Go gets a nasty plot off, all while the rest of this action is happening around it. So Sneasler still gets away with quite a bit into the Sinistcha that's no longer a Ghost type.
Right, gets some solid damage from close combat on this turn, but Sinistcha will eat its Citrus Berry. The Incineroar switch still really positive here, saves Sinistcha some health, but is importantly threatening damage into that Golden Go, has its own health bar slowly going down because of Burn, and Aurora Veil now expiring. Probably going to incentivize a Terastallization from Golden Go to make sure that it can stay safe in the face of the Incineroar on the other side, because recall that we're in Trick Room, so Incineroar will move before Golden Go. Sneasler going to be the last thing to move on the field, and you know, if you're too protective of Golden Go, for instance, just protecting it this turn, that KO is also available. A Flare Blitz in the Sneasler, even with the Grassy Seed +1 defense, is probably enough damage to pick up that KO. So with these few turns of Trick Room, it's not, you know, it's not heavy, hard Trick Room, heavy offense style here, but definitely some damage potential from Dylan.
The Protect makes a lot of sense, though. With two turns of Trick Room left, you at least get your Golden Go through one of them, and you still have those special attack drops. Then you can think about investing the Terastallization on the next turn. But with this Sinistcha moving first, look at how much more damage the Sneasler's going to take now that it already dropped its special defenses by 1 because of that close combat. There is no burn, but it doesn't matter because this Incineroar is able to follow up on that Machagacha damage and get the KO regardless. One good thing for Lorcy is that you do now have the opportunity to bring in something like the Rillaboom and at least fake out one of these two Pokemon. Then you maybe are able to weave in a bit more damage with your Golden Go, but that Rillaboom is so low.
Right, Rillaboom is low, but definitely not going to go down to a Machagacha. Fake out pressure into Incineroar safeguards Golden Go, which also isn't at much risk from Machagacha on this turn. And with one more turn of Trick Room after this, you can kind of use the fake out pressure to get to the other side of it. So things start to look pretty good for Golden Go here. Had a free opportunity to attack last turn. Only a Machagacha went into that slot, but not too bad to not have capitalized on it since it seems like the opportunities are upcoming. Sinistcha as a water type also just vulnerable to damage from Rillaboom. So even though Golden Go is not going to easily burn through that health, and has to worry about Rage Powder if it ever needs to Shadow Ball, the Rillaboom can easily clean that up.
Really safe for Lorcy to just go for that fake out into the Incineroar and then try to follow up on damage. You don't really want to give away all of your special attack boosts just yet, and Shadow Ball is going to do amazing single target damage into either of these slots. The only downside is if you click Shadow Ball and it's an Ursaluna that ends up switching into that spot, that's not going to be very good news for you. But the fake out first into the Incineroar, and with the Machagacha, Golden Go actually misses out on that attack, which is kind of nice to at least preserve a little bit of that HP, but Rillaboom gets taken down very, very low. Sinistcha hopefully will just get knocked out on this turn. That's what the Golden Go is hoping for, but the Rillaboom does get burned from the Machagacha. Any additional attack coming out from this Rillaboom is going to be really neutralized by that burn, but the Shadow Ball picks up the Sinistcha, and it's 1 KO here for Lorcy.
Gets the first KO, maybe makes it less impactful to have the burn because you no longer have to deal with the water type Sinistcha, but the burns are also adding up for damage. The Golden Go much lower than it would have been if it hadn't been burnt for the last few turns, as it continues to take that damage that's undoing the grassy terrain. Rillaboom likewise going to be, consistently one tick of burn damage away from being KO'd.
But what does Dylan decide to bring in on this turn now? Because the Trick Room has expired, you only have two other options, the Ninetales or the Ursaluna.
Well, the Ninetales is perfectly timed, right? It was the fastest thing on the field at the beginning of this game, and now it's the fastest thing on the field again with a fresh 5 turns of snow in its favor. Has Icy Wind. If the Incineroar is fast enough, then Icy Wind will enable Incineroar to move first and swing out into Golden Go. Rillaboom can't really do much to mitigate that, especially with the burn on it. It can't try to swing for the KO onto Ninetales with the snow defense boost and the burn. It's going to do very little, and so Rillaboom kind of just a sitting duck here. We're back in the position where a very low health Rillaboom, what do you prioritize? Do you get it out into the back so that you can have another fake out pressure in the future, or do you just try to give it up? And if the play is protecting Ninetales and just having Incineroar swing out, then you may fail to give it up as well.
Yeah, it's a tough call, because I think here as well, this Ninetales still could encore this Rillaboom into Fake Out. That's a huge possibility, unless this Rillaboom actually does go for the Grassy Glide instead, maybe trying to just get past that. But for now, we will see this Golden Go use that Water Terrestrialization to have a little bit of a better time in this matchup. It's just still so tough. As the Ninetales goes for the Blizzard, it's going to just take the KO on this Rillaboom. It's nice that this Golden Go is burned in this moment, because you actually can't get frozen on top of that. So this Golden Go still has plenty of time to move. This Make It Rain is now ready to fire off, gets the KO into the Ninetales, and just barely misses out on that Incineroar, which is kind of devastating.
Yeah, doesn't get the KO. Incineroar is going to be able to attack, but their Terrestrialization is going to help Golden Go a little bit. Let's see what the attack is. Knockoff, is it enough?
Oh, just barely. It's so unfortunate there with how much damage that Golden Go had taken from the burns. That could have been the difference, whether or not this Terrestrialization saved it from that knockoff.
Could have been the difference for sure. Now we have to watch, though, can Ninetales close this out? I don't think it's impossible. If Blizzard is enough damage to pick up the KO onto the Incineroar, it should definitely be enough damage to pick up the 2-hit KO onto Ursaluna. There's no Terrestrialization available, and there's still a Focus Sash intact for Ninetales. So even if Blood Moon is enough to 1-hit KO Ninetales, it won't actually finish it. So I wouldn't count Lorcy out of this yet. I think, it's going to come down to Blizzard into the, Blizzard into Incineroar. Is it enough? It's enough.
Plenty to get rid of that Incineroar and almost to get rid of this Ursaluna also. So with the Focus Sash, Lorcy has done it. Weaved his way out of these Trick Room turns. Now has the Focus Sash still available on this Ninetales. We actually have to take a call back to the very early parts of this game. Ninetales took a little bit of damage, but with 2 turns of that Grassy Terrain recovery, actually got back to full HP so that this Focus Sash could be used at this point in the game. So heads up from Lorcy there to preserve this Ninetales for the very end. Even though Ursaluna is going to go for the Protect, maybe try to stall out the snow so that we don't actually see the Blizzard's hit at full accuracy, still feels like it should be shored up here from Lorcy.
Yeah, there's no reason if you're Dylan to not click the buttons. Maybe if you get enough Grassy Terrain recovery, you're out of Terra Blast KO range and it's not snowing anymore, so he's got to go for it. But Lorcy should be able to close this out. And like you mentioned, the Icy Wind got some damage on early, but Grassy Terrain was able to heal that off, restore that Focus Sash.
Well, Dylan needs one more Protect to stall out this snow. Gets the double, but with a triple, things get really tough to actually string together that third Protect. And even then, you gotta hope for a Blizzard miss on top of that.
Yeah, even if you get all the way to the other side of the triple Protect, you still only have a 30% chance. No triple Protect, it should be Blizzard before the turn is done.
Yes, and even if it wasn't Blizzard, maybe the Terra Blast by itself is gonna be enough with that normal typing. But congratulations to Lorcy for the first game. Dylan, gonna bring it back in the second one, maybe give us a game 3.
Such an interesting, close match. It felt like Dylan had a lot of the speed control, used the Trick Room from Sinistcha, the Icy Wind from Ninetales to usually have that control, but didn't feel like he had the damage. The Sinistcha just wasn't providing much. It sat on the field for a lot of turns, but just Machagachid for resistance hits. Even getting 2 burns, it didn't have enough impact to close out this game.
If it had Shadow Ball, this does look very different, but it's got Life Dew as its supportive option instead. But I really saw a lot of opportunity in Trick Room where I went, oh, Sinistcha, if you had Shadow Ball, like think about how much damage you're doing to the Golden Go, you probably force out the Terra a little bit sooner, but obviously there's a reason why this Life Dew is on the team. If you're able to extend the game long enough and Sinistcha is able to give some extra life back to some of your Pokemon, sometimes that is the wiggle room you need to actually survive a different role.
Yeah, it was still felt helpful early on in the game when it came in. got some health back onto Ninetales, but you know, if it's not able to provide damage, if Lorcy's going to be bringing 3 Pokemon that resist grass, then I'm not sure that only grass attacking Sinestcha can have the impact. Life Dew did never feel like it was that impactful. Rage Powder never felt like it was going to change the course of that game. So the Trick Room was impactful, but an adjustment to something like King Gambit might make a difference.
I would like the King Gambit a little bit more than that Sinestcha because Lorcy got through those Trick Room turns really well. And as we enter into the second game, we do see an Incineroar on both sides. The Ninetales once again for Dylan, but Lorcy's going to switch things up. You have the Ursaluna on the field now.
Ursaluna's a threat here, can go out after Incineroar, swing with Earth Power. The Incineroars both have Fake Out available. Fake Out into Ninetales can break Focus Sash. There's no Grassy Train to start restoring it this time. Ursaluna, though, probably pretty slow on Lorcy's side, would be possibly in reach of just being outsped and Parting Shot by Incineroar, which would avoid the Earth Power damage. So a lot of little speed relationships to find out here to see how advantageous having Ursaluna out on the field at this moment is. But even beyond that, you have to worry about the Blizzards coming in. Without Assault Vest, it's a lot of damage back into Ursaluna. So if you're not going to Fake Out Ninetales, you have to Terastallize immediately.
And the Terastallization getting used so early might be something that actually comes back to hurt you. With this Blood Moon Ursaluna that Dylan brought to that first game, you do have Earth Power to threaten some major damage into that Terra Electric. And this Blood Moon Ursaluna from Dylan actually just hits the field now as Ninetales knows doesn't want to stay in this battle right now, but it will come back out when maybe the speed is a little bit more in its favor. So Lorcy uses a Terastallization, would have been able to get around some of this Blizzard damage, and it gets faked out, so it just can't even move on this turn. But the Parting Shot into the opposing Incineroar allows Lorcy to respond to this opposing Blood Moon Ursaluna in a different way. Yeah,
you might wish the Parting Shot was into the Ursaluna so you didn't have to worry quite as much about the Earth Power on the following turn, but going to let you drop Incineroar's attack and reposition, get Rillaboom out on the field so that you have Fake Out pressure of your own for the next turn, because yeah, big threat has emerged. You just turned your Ursaluna into an electric type, and an Ursaluna emerged on the other side that's threatening super effective Earth Power, and you have to imagine that the Life Orb Ursaluna on Dylan's side is faster than the leftover Ursaluna on Lorcy's side, so that's probably just threatening outspeed and one-hit KO. So Fake Out's got to come on in to interrupt that. Now, you have multiple ways to interrupt it. You can protect Ursaluna, you can switch Ursaluna, though I think we see 2 ground-weak Pokemon in the back, makes it hard to come into those big Earth Powers. And so, it feels at this moment like that Ursaluna from Dylan's side is going to have a huge impact because the Incineroar can get you Icy Wind coverage in the future. Like, there's a lot of ways to enable Dylan's Ursaluna.
Well, Dylan's Ursaluna is just going to stay on the field and actually go for a Terastallization here.
This gets away from the Fake Out. If it's not Ursaluna protecting this turn, the Fake Out's not going to be enough to stop an Earth Power coming in.
Well, it's just a double attack, though. Incineroar is going to be the first to move. Dylan's is going to be a little bit faster than this Rillaboom, so you do get the Parting Shot before we see what this Rillaboom is opted into. But we know it's not a Fake Out since it's going to be the next to move. I would love to see how much damage both of these Pokemon are going to do on Lorcy's side. If you're able to get a big knockout onto this Blood Moon Ursaluna, then that's a really big way for you to pave the way. Rillaboom does land this Wood Hammer, and the critical hit is a one-hit knockout! That's gonna leave the Ninetales that just switched into that Incineroar slot vulnerable to a second attack!
This is a completely game-changing, game-warping play. I don't think the Woodhammer would have been enough. We expect that Dylan's Ursaluna would have moved first, was probably threatening a KO back into Lorcy. So this swings things all sorts of ways, because now rather than an Earth Power coming into Lorcy's Ursaluna, or whatever the Ursaluna had opted for, could have been Blood Moon into Rillaboom, instead you have the Ursaluna going down and Blood Moon into Ninetales, just completely game-shifting. Now, that doesn't mean that Dylan's out of it yet, but his biggest threat probably lost. Incineroar's going to come back in, intimidate the Rillaboom here, threaten Fake Out pressure once again into Ursaluna, but Ninetales looking very vulnerable too, will be threatened by Grassy Glide for the rest of this match.
It's so low already, and for sure this Rillaboom can pick it off at a later time, but for now, Lorcy's set on being able to bring back in this Incineroar, get the Intimidate drop onto the opposing Incineroar, as Ninetales now ready to try to pick up some of that damage that this Blood Moon Ursaluna left off with, gets the freeze onto the Incineroar, so okay, maybe a little bit of luck evening out in the second game, but with the Flare Blitz to follow up, we actually are going to end up seeing this Incineroar on Thaw, I think.
right, should defrost from the Flare Blitz landing into it, so not capitalizing on the freeze necessarily. Earth Power will clean up the Ninetales KO. The Ursaluna doing a great job of taking Blizzard. That's that Terastallization that was spent turn 1 to get away from Blizzard, paying off several turns later. With Ursaluna really not taking much damage, and the combination of Leftovers and Grassy Terrain will quickly heal it back. Without the Ursaluna on the other side from Dylan, it may be very difficult to ever find the damage into this electric type Ursaluna. This is what it's so good at, just having constant sustain, and so you can't really do enough damage back to me to make that a problem. Sinestcha's not going to be the solution to the problem.
No, with only the Machagachas, we just saw how little damage that was able to add up over time in that first game.
With no switches available too, Yawn is easy to just put things to sleep. So yeah, already, quickly, Dylan concedes the match. That Woodhammer crit, just so devastating. And then Lorcy quick to add on top of it to take the win. Wow.
Lorcy is going to win this set 2-0, move on to the finals. And I bet he's not super unhappy about missing his flight home today.